In this video, we're going to continue with the financial stuff, and I'm actually going to explain the differences between bookkeeping softwares that I've explored. Right now, the two leading accounting bookkeeping softwares are going to be Xero and QuickBooks Online. Xero was kind of like the OG. That was really sexy back in the day, probably 6-7 years ago. They were sort of the cream of the crop, but it seems as though in the last 5 years in particular, QuickBooks Online has really made a push to be the best software out there. So in this video, we're going to talk about the two programs. I'm going to go through them briefly because I have them both set up, and you won't see my numbers, but I'll kind of show you how reporting and the dashboards look. Full disclosure, at the end, I'm going to give you my strong biased opinion on my experience. With e-commerce in particular, there's also a third option, and you may want to explore that, and I'll be discussing that in this video as well. Sometimes business can be a little slow in the sense that you can have a long-term plan, right? Where you don't realize profits for a while, but we're focused on bootstrapping, on building a supplement brand and getting that cycle of profitability and cash flow back into your bank account as soon as possible. In that regard, it's much more important that we find profitability and we learn the fundamentals. This may not be your business that makes you rich, but it's going to teach you everything you need to know. And that's really important. So let's jump into these different platforms. I'll give you a basic foundation of what the terms are for the accounting, and I'll show you what I think as far as where you are in your business and what you want to do. All right, here's the deal. So when you're working on bookkeeping software, there's really two main solutions out there. There's going to be a program called Xero for small business and QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks has a lot of customizability as far as transactions, cash flow trends, things like that. Xero also has some sort of cash flow transaction type stuff that it tracks, as well as your accounts here. But I'm going to be honest with you. I've been on Xero for about 8-9 years. And last year I did research, and what I found was that QuickBooks Online was just getting all the rave. And for the last, I would say probably 5-6 years, they've probably been ahead of the pack in terms of like the software that is most respected for small business in terms of being invested in improving. So what am I trying to show you here? Well, what I will say is this: the plans are cheaper on Xero right now. So if you go to Xero pricing, you're going to get very competitive pricing on their plans. $47 a month. Let's see here, compare plans and pricing. So for like just a basic bookkeeping software, Xero's probably okay for you if you're small and you're just starting out. In terms of cost, 47 is very reasonable. If you go to QuickBooks Online pricing and we look at the pricing plans that they offer, if you want inventory tracking and products and things like that, you're going to probably end up going with Plus. They're going to give you a bit more detail, but even their simple start basic plans aren't bad as far as essentials, what you're paying at Xero. But this is a monthly fee, and this is so you can see all of your financial data. Now, in my experience, between the two platforms, Xero would consistently have to be re-logged into on the bank feeds, so that we're not keeping up with the API connections for like Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, these banking accounts that we're feeding in the data. And on top of that, their dashboard is just very this is not updated in since I started. I think this looks literally the same. And there's apps I'm sure that are really good that I haven't explored in their app store. But in terms of what I've experienced and used within Xero, it just wasn't great. So business, short-term cash flow picture, some of this is going to be maybe insightful. There's accounting, contacts. My summary of my personal experience using Xero for 8-9 years. And to be fair, I have sort of left the Xero world and really gone all in on QuickBooks, is that as I started searching these different platforms and looking at what I wanted to do for a $2-3 million SKU product brand, then I have two brands essentially. And when I talk to all the people I've talked to, I've probably talked to about 7 or 8 different tech companies that work with both Xero and QuickBooks. Now you're paying more, but you're also getting a lot more. And I think they're laying out the data a lot cleaner. And the other thing I will say for sure that I've noticed is on your phone, there is a really sexy QuickBooks app that Intuit built, the company that builds QuickBooks, that syncs right up, and it pulls on your phone the profit and loss, and it will show you your P&L in real time. So that is really cool. It also has cash flow in here. So you can kind of see profitability on my business here. and it's going to show numbers. Now, all these numbers right now are kind of messy because I'm recoding everything and I'm starting to learn about balance sheet and logging inventory properly and tracking the cost of goods. But the main point I'm trying to make here is that I want to see everything. I want to see it regularly. I want to treat my financial health of this business with more attention than I do with my own social media and things like that. And the only way I'm going to do that is if I make it very clear consistently that I can go in here and this will let me break it down by quarter, month, year to date. I can look into the weeks of the month and I can click in here and see all my expenses. I can even click into the expense items. I can look down the list and see all the expenses it's feeding from QuickBooks. And I can almost guarantee you that Xero does not have this. So as I was making this video, I actually realized and looked through the apps and I was actually pretty impressed with Xero. Like they've just updated their app 6 days ago. And I did some more research online with Perplexity Pro, and Xero's been growing steadily, about 25%. So in terms of the software itself, New Zealand dollars, almost $1 billion in revenue. So this is EBITDA, 50%. So they've actually been quite good internationally. If you're an international, e-commerce person, you might actually want to look into Xero. Like I said, in my experience, this is the sort of dashboard that you approach. And in my experience, it hasn't been the greatest for customizability in the way I want it to look. With QuickBooks on the dashboard, you can go privacy layout here. Let's just do that. So I'll turn off all my financial stuff, but it'll show you can really move these things around. You can customize this. You can move these different dashboards. You can add widgets. So if you come in here, you can remove and add these different widgets as you want. You've got your profit and loss. You can have your cash flow and all of those details in here. If you have any sort of outstanding invoices, it could be just a really big bias for me, but I just find that QuickBooks, with all of its customizability and the app that I was experiencing before with Xero being not great, I'm really impressed with the QuickBooks. Also, for my research, QuickBooks is an American company. Intuit, massive funding and team behind it. It's bigger. They roll out updates faster. And I also file my taxes as an American citizen. For many of you watching, you're probably going to have to file taxes. The same company that makes QuickBooks makes TurboTax and these other platforms. So they have a lot of experience with taxes. And so I just think that the integration and all of that is going to be very strong with QuickBooks accounting. And you've got, 4.7 rating on 211,000 people on the app for QuickBooks versus Xero's they have a 4.6 on 1,200, literally 200,000 versus 1,200 reviews. Now, reviews aren't everything, but in terms of the apps, they're the same age, and there's literally 100 times more people using QuickBooks. So I generally think go with what's proven, and you're going to have a fantastic way to kind of build out a lot of what you have. And again, I've consulted with a number of accountants. Almost all of them recommend QuickBooks Online. I've only talked with a handful of people in the e-commerce space, but all the research as I was going through using ChatGPT 4.0, figuring out the tools, the inventory tracking, invoicing, how I was going to track everything and build out reconciliation of my payouts and details there. QuickBooks Online has just been way, way, way smoother as a platform. You can go in and you can track your sort of like your products, things like that. You can make them, you can bundle inventory items. And with the apps that I've learned, which we can talk about if you want in the comments, just drop a comment if you really want me to go deeper. You can actually use apps that do inventory tracking and they lay out and do the clearing accounts. If you are a business that has inventory, which if you're in e-commerce, you're probably gonna have inventory, and you want to track that, you're gonna need to code your transactions, meaning like when you get a payout from Amazon, you're gonna want to know how many orders were in there. And you're also going to want to tell QuickBooks or Xero, if you're using that, how many units were sold. And you need a way to do that. And if you just take the money that is sent from Amazon or the native apps that are in these tools, the native apps are garbage. You need to go out there and look at tools like A2X, Cinder, or Clavena is a really good one that I've been using. And they will basically allow you to feed in the transactions. They'll lay on top of QuickBooks and they will take all the transactions, import them from these different sales channels like Shopify, PayPal, Amazon Seller Central, TikTok Shop even, and they will tell you what these transactions are. Is it a sale? Is it a refund? Is it a commission to the marketplace? Is it a sales tax that they took? And it puts it into like all the right accounts for you. So you can actually get a real accurate picture of what you are getting in your books. That's really important and it's helpful to do that. So again, I want to kind of just preface all this by saying, between all these platforms, there's QuickBooks Online. I think the dashboard's great. You can get your P&L, your cash flow, all this. You can show your transactions, your sales trends. And it seems like there's more customizability in their dashboard. And then there's also, like we said, there's Xero, which I haven't found to be great. And this kind of problem would happen regularly where the bank feeds would disconnect. I think they are consistently fixing it. They must be, but they're also a New Zealand company and they are probably more international than US based, where QuickBooks is very familiar with the US banking and they're onshore here. And so they've got more of that within the US. And my admin would consistently complain about how she would have to go in and reconnect the feeds and the rules wouldn't work well to code the transactions. So all of that made it more difficult to work with this software. And that's why we moved over. As far as reporting goes, you can still get your reports, your P&Ls, all that looks very similar no matter what you're going to do. So, you can come in here and just click and pull a balance sheet report, and it's going to show you all these kind of, line items, and you can click on all of them and you can really go in and look at what's going on with these reports. But with QuickBooks, you come into your reports area, you go to your standard reports, and then you can go down here to your profit and loss. And when you're here, you can go through this whole item here and see what's going on with your P&L. You can see all your sales and your product income and your cost of goods and what you have going on across everything that you're doing and whatnot. So that is QuickBooks versus Xero. And I want to give you one last kind of gem here, which is Finaloop. They're an Israeli company. They, I believe, have 40 million secured in funding, and they are specifically focused on e-commerce. And they offer a couple plans based on wherever you are in your revenue situation, where they'll do the bookkeeping for you and fully generate your stuff, like your books and your reports, but you are on their proprietary platform. So that's the thing that I don't love. I think when it comes to financials, I want to know exactly what's going on and I want to have extreme control. I do not like handing off some proprietary software. Now, they have a good calculator in here. They make a very strong case with their premium plan. They do offer inventory tracking, but you're going to pay $1,000, which again, you're getting the bookkeeping, right? You're getting all the reconciliation. They're going to do your inventory and review and guidance, I guess. I haven't used them personally, but they do seem like they have a solid offering. And I've talked to them and, it seems very well related and rated from what I've heard. So if you just don't want to mess with this, which again, if you're a young, newer operator and you're not even aware, as we talked about earlier in the video, focus on learning the fundamentals, get in the trenches, just start learning. You need to have a basic understanding of this accounting to be a successful operator. There's just no way if you don't grasp accounting, transactions, coding, charting of accounts, meaning like what account in the business does what. If you don't have a grasp of this, you're going to be in bad shape because it's just not going to be, you're not going to have a good reference point to discuss all these things. Here's the deal. Xero is more basic, not bad, but probably a better option if you're international. QuickBooks would be my strong recommendation, even on their basic plans. It's just a better choice if you're stateside in the US. And if you want more reliability, my experience as an American using the software for the last several months, QuickBooks Online, versus using Xero for the last 8-9 years, the feedback across the board has been that QuickBooks is the solid go-to for e-commerce when you want inventory tracking, you want actual data, you want feeds, you want just a stronger platform to track. And when we look at the apps, QuickBooks Online app is over 200,000 reviews versus 1,200 with Xero. It's just a much more robust app. So even though Xero may look pretty competitive side by side, my personal experience is when you actually start using these tools and you want the data to work, especially as you grow, QuickBooks is going to be a better platform for handling that data. And then Finaloop is an interesting play. Unless you have like a pretty robust understanding of financials, I think you're going to be better off working in the realms of having more control. And that's why I think QuickBooks Online, using one of these third-party apps, which will probably run you anywhere from $30 a month to $300 a month if you're a larger, several million dollar, multi-million dollar, $3+, $4+, $5+ million dollar operation, you're gonna wanna do that. And then there's a tier above all this called NetSuite that is pretty burly. I didn't go into the details of NetSuite, but I have heard, once you get to maybe 10, 15 million, then you have a lot more transactions and then you need an even more robust system. So for us right now, QuickBooks Online is my kind of go-to, and I hope this video gave you some insights and opinions and thoughts on thinking about what you want to do. Drop a comment below if you have questions about these platforms or maybe opinion in your experience. Let me know if you have anything you want me to explore further down the rabbit hole. If you think you'd like to learn about the apps that code the transactions more, do not use the native apps that either these tools, QuickBooks or Xero, provide. Go out there and look at third-party apps that I mentioned in the video, Cinder, Clavena. These apps are much better and they're well maintained and they're built to kind of take the transactions and break them apart and code them properly and track inventory. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video and I will see you in the next one.